Thinking about buying an average home in Halifax? Here's the problem. Most Nova Scotians can't afford it anymore. Over the last several years, home prices have been increasing, while the average household income simply hasn't been keeping up, causing the affordability gap to get wider and wider and wider. In this video, I'm going to run you through the last 10 years of data with home prices and wages, but make sure you stick around until the end because I'm going to tie all this together and talk about what this affordability gap means to you if you're looking to purchase a home in Halifax. Now, just before I get into it, if you're new here, do me a favor and hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. And if you're thinking about making a move in the HRM and you want to get in touch with me, you can reach out to me anytime in the Calendly link below. Okay, so jumping right into this one, this first graph I'm going to talk about is the median household income in Nova Scotia over the last 10 years, and this data is from Stats Canada. So the last true data was in 2022, which was just under $89,000, and as you can see here in the graph, the growth is pretty stagnant. The average in the last 10 years is 2.7% year over year growth. Now, the last 2 years in the graph here that I'm going to talk about in a little bit are just projections, and they're based on a 2.7% average growth, which again is the growth over the last 10 years. Now, moving on to graph number 2, this one is adding in the Nova Scotia median household income. So that's the lines here in red. So you can see early on, this was relatively stagnant. And then moving into the market boom, which started late 2019 or early 2020, this gap starts to get a lot wider, a lot faster as the market in our province really started to blow up. Now, this is bringing me to the third graph I'm going to show you. So this is 3 of 5, and I'm going to start getting into some interesting points here in the next one. So this graph here is adding in another column. You see here in blue, this is the median HRM home prices. So again, these are, of course, higher than the Nova Scotia prices because overall HRM is the most expensive region in Nova Scotia. And again, you can see how the gap was pretty stagnant in those early years, about 10 years ago. And then it really starts to take off, and the gap starts to get wider and wider as the market started to blow up. Now I'm going to add in the orange column here, and this is where, in my opinion, it gets a lot more interesting. So the orange column is the approximate affordability based on the interest rates and the median household income at that given year. So early on, the affordability of the median income is actually well above the median price points for both HRM and Nova Scotia. And this remains this way for quite some time. So this is extremely healthy. Obviously, it's nice to see that people can afford average homes. So again, we're using the median prices because we're using the median income, and that just seems to be the best way to do this for this video. And there's a couple things that I want to point out because there's a little bit of interesting things happening in this graph here. So if I look at the large drop in affordability from 2015 to 2016, this is due to the stress test, which was implemented in 2016. So again, this is what the government implemented. If you're less than 20% down payment, then you're qualified at 2% higher compared to the rate that you're actually getting. So if interest rate that you're going to be getting on your mortgage is 3%, then you're qualified at 5%. So this hurt the overall buying power of a lot of buyers, even though this measure was put in place to protect the consumer overall. Now, if I look a little bit further into 2020 and 2021, you'll notice that both of these years, there were huge boosts in the affordability levels. This was mainly due to the declining interest rates, which was another huge reason why price points in HRM and Nova Scotia skyrocketed these years as the demand went through the roof. And both the low interest rates and the population growth that we saw over this time frame really had a big impact on that. Now, remember, Halifax was the fastest growing downtown core in Canada from 2016 to 2021. And in 2020 and 2021, interest rates were at rock bottom. This sort of resulted in the perfect storm coupled with the pandemic and a lot of people migrating here from out of province. And this allowed the price points to jump by about 15%, 26%, and 16% in 2020, 2021, and 2022, respectively. And finally, if we're looking specifically at the affordability in 2021 and then the decline to 2022 and 2023, this is again largely to do with the interest rates, right? So the rates started to rise and the overall buying power started to shift and it started to decrease for a lot of the buyer pool. However, the demand in our market was still outpacing the level of supply, so the price points continued to rise because of that growing demand and the overall lack of supply that we saw in our market. Now in 2024, we see a bit of an increase since the rates are starting to fall again. And over the last 2 years, we see the level of affordability dropping relative to the home prices. And it's basically in line with the median Nova Scotia price points, but it's still well below the median HRM price points as a whole. Now, this is bringing me to my last graph before I get into the section where I'm going to talk about what all this means, and I'm going to circle all back around to that. But this last graph is almost the same. It just adds in 2025, and these are projected numbers. So this section is projecting what it would look like if the rates fell by about 1% and the home prices and incomes increased by the same averages that we've seen over the last 10 years. So if this were to happen, we'd be looking at a healthier gap in the province as a whole, but still falling very short of the overall Halifax price points that we're seeing right now on the ground level. This affordability gap exists for a few reasons. Home prices have exploded here based on the supply and demand issues that we have. So again, the main factors being low rates, high demand, low inventory, and a huge increase in population. All the while, the wage growth overall in Nova Scotia during this time frame has been quite stagnant, definitely compared to the home pricing increases that we've been seeing. There's also been a huge lack of building overall in the province, and as of late, we've seen a ratio as high as 8-to-1 in terms of the people that are coming into the province versus the housing units that we've been building. So an 8-to-1 ratio, it was the second widest ratio in the country, only behind New Brunswick at the time when that stat came out last fall when I made a video about that. However, this will likely start to get a little bit better moving forward because of the boom in construction that we've seen here, and housing starts are at record highs, along with the fact that the immigration numbers are going to be decreasing moving forward. All of this has had huge impact on our housing market over the last 5 years. Average homes are not so affordable anymore. Based on the average typical income of a Nova Scotian household, buyers can afford a lot less. And this has made the $450,000 range, especially and below, extremely challenging if you're looking to purchase a home in that price point. This has increased the level of competition and resulted in a lot of bidding wars at these price points, and it's resulted in a lot of disappointed buyers in the marketplace. It's taken an emotional toll and a financial toll on buyers in this province, and it's forced the buyers to make sacrifices when they're looking to buy a home, especially in terms of location, property type, and finish level, so that they can get into a home that they can actually afford not only to purchase, but also live in and keep up with the maintenance and so on. This situation, in my opinion, is likely to continue moving forward. And the thing is, a lot of people would argue that at some point this has to hit the wall, right? Something has to give. Either home prices have to come down, we have to see a market correction, or wages are going to have to go way up to account for this. But the truth is, unfortunately, in HRM specifically, that gap is pretty wide right now. And there's only, in a typical year, about 6,000 home sales in the HRM. So even though the masses can't afford it, and maybe a typical Nova Scotian household can't afford it, the truth is only 6,000 people need to be able to afford it to continue this trend and to continue competing on these homes and bidding wars and all of these things. So because of this and because of the population growth we're seeing in Halifax, I don't anticipate this gap narrowing anytime in the foreseeable future. If anything, I think it might get wider as the years go on because I don't foresee a huge wage jump coming. However, I do think the average price points are likely to continue moving forward, especially as the rates are coming down a little bit. But the rates coming down maybe 0.5% or something along those lines is not going to make up for the fact that the average price points are potentially going to go up by maybe 5 or 6% in the coming years if we continue on the trend of what an average price growth year over year would be. And on top of that, we're seeing a lot more demand in the market because of the recent mortgage changes in terms of 30-year amortizations and some other things that were changed recently in the mortgage world. So what does this mean for you if you're looking to buy a home in Halifax? Well, first off, if you're looking in the, let's say, $400,000 range and under, which is about what an average household income can afford right now based on the current interest rates, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very challenging. And for context, last year in the HRM, if I look for sales that are $400,000 and under across the whole HRM, there was only 1,000 sales last year in 2024. Now, if I take away condos and mini homes, that number drops substantially to only 400 sales. So there's only been 400 detached or semi-detached or townhomes sold in HRM last year at $400,000 and under. Now, that's not a lot when you consider how many sales there were overall in the HRM, which was about 5,200. So again, that's just showing how difficult this affordable price range is for what an average household income would be looking at. In this price point, again, it's very competitive and you're likely to face a lot of bidding wars and a lot of competition. And that means that you might miss out on a bunch of properties that you love before you're lucky enough to secure an accepted offer on a property. So if you're looking to buy a home in the $400,000 range and under, it's really important that your expectations are in line with what is going to be your reality. So if you're looking to buy a home in this price range, you're likely going to have to make some sacrifices, maybe on location, maybe on finish level, maybe on size, or maybe even on property type, depending on your exact situation and what your budget may look at. But the truth is, if you're especially buying your first home and you get in now and you make some of those sacrifices, you can, if you make a right decision, you can build some equity up. And over the next 5 or 10 years, you could maybe move up into something that more resembles what you would consider a forever home for you and your family, or you and your future family. Based on the overall market conditions in this price range, it is a seller's market. So you are disadvantaged as a buyer. So it really matters who you work with. I really can't stress that enough. For example, the difference in working with a good mortgage broker who can get your approval done in maybe 5 business days compared to the typical 7 to 10 business days may be the ultimate difference maker in you securing an accepted offer on a property that you love, or you missing out because you were outbid or somebody had a better offer than you with better terms because your mortgage broker said it was going to take 10 business days, when in reality, there's a lot of them out there that may be able to do it in 5. Now, that's just one example. Now, for context, I worked with a buyer back in the fall, and she was looking into around the up to $450,000-ish price point, and we secured an accepted offer on her very first home that she wrote an offer on. Now, a lot of this had to do with the overall timelines and who she was working with on the lawyer side and on the financing side and on the inspection side. So because we had this great team, we could make the condition dates 5 business days when a lot of the competing offers were 7 to 10 business days. And that would have been a huge reason why that worked out for her on the first try. And full disclosure, I actually met her off of this channel. So shout out to you. If you're watching this video, you know who you are. But she told me while we were working together, a couple stories of friends, one in particular that had written offers on like 15 or 20 homes and never had an accepted offer. First of all, that's really hard for me to hear as a realtor. It's really, really crappy. It's a bad situation. It's so discouraging for a buyer. And the truth is, the reason that's happening are likely for 2 reasons. One, maybe they're looking at homes that are above their price point. Maybe they're listed in their price point, but let's say maybe they're looking up to $400,000 and maybe they're offering on a bunch of homes that are $399,900. And then after the multiple offers come in, it ends up selling for maybe $420,000 or $425,000. So it's important to look at homes that are in the price point that, even if you're in a bidding war, it's going to allow you to put a bid in that has a chance of getting accepted. And on top of that, I would suggest that there are definitely reasons of why their offers are not getting accepted. Maybe it's the terms, maybe it's the timelines. I don't know what it would be. It's not my business to know that. But the truth is, if you're taking 20 times to write an offer, there's a reason why. It's not just because you are the unlucky ones, because I hear this time and time again from a lot of buyers that I work with. So if you're looking to buy a home, the affordability gap between wages and price points is not likely to shrink anytime soon. But by setting realistic expectations and working with the right people and preparing yourself and having the right plan in place, you can still make home ownership a reality even at the tougher, more challenging price points in that devastating seller's market that we've been seeing in the under 400 or under $450,000 price range. Now, if you're looking to buy a home, there's a lot of steps that you should be taking. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can do so anytime in the Calendly link below my description. You can book a buyer consult with me to chat about what you need to do and what you should be doing next to set yourself up for success. And if you got any value out of this video, all I ask is that you hit that like button and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future content. That'll help push this out to more people like you who may be interested in being educated on the Halifax and Nova Scotia real estate market. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support and have a great day.